everyone, and welcome back to another one of my Sonic reviews. And we're finally getting to Sonic the Hedgehog 2 for the Sega Genesis. I know I've built it up, but yes, we're finally getting to it. So here we go. This is Sonic the Hedgehog 2 for the Sega Genesis. For the first time, you have a choice as to what character you can play as, Sonic or Tails. You can also play as Sonic while Tails follows you and copies whatever you do. He's meant to help you, but many people don't like having Tails with Sonic because he can often screw you up. Even though Tails can fly when he follows you, you can't actually fly when playing as Tails, unfortunately. He plays exactly like Sonic. Now let's get into the zones. You start off in Emerald Hill Zone, which in my opinion is much better than Green Hill from the first game on Genesis. I should also mention that the zones have 2 acts each instead of 3 now, and this is a change that I really like. Chemical Plant is the next zone, which, like Green Hill, is one of the most iconic zones in Sonic history. It's crazy fast, but there's some areas that can be tricky for some, such as the platforming. Next is Aquatic Ruin Zone, which is pretty much the water zone of the game. However, the great thing about it is that it's possible for you to never actually touch the water if you're skilled enough. Then there's Casino Night Zone, which is the series' first casino level, which would become a staple in future games. I really like the background of this zone. Then there's Hilltop Zone, which is a grassy plains, however it's right above a bunch of lava. Next is Mystic Cave Zone, which is awesome. The music is fantastic and the setting is great. Next is Oil Ocean Zone, which is pretty self-explanatory. Some people don't like it, but I think it's pretty good. But then there's the big zone, Metropolis Zone, which is the only zone that has 3 acts. For first-time players, they're going to hate this zone because of the difficulty, but since I've pretty much mastered this zone, I find it to be really fun. Then there's Sky Chase Zone, Wing Fortress Zone, and Death Egg Zone, which each have 1 act each. I'm grouping these 3 together since they all connect. In Sky Chase, you're on top of Sonic's plane and are fighting enemies. It's as cool as it sounds. Wing Fortress is one of Dr. Robotnik's bases, and there's actually something you can do in order to skip most of the level. Death Egg is just 2 final bosses. You fight Silver Sonic like the Game Gear version, then the Death Egg robot, which is extremely hard for first-time players, mainly because you have 0 rings, so 1 hit and you have to start both bosses over again. Speaking of boss fights, you still fight Robotnik at the end of every zone. It's hard for me to really say if they're challenging or not because I've played this game so many times that nothing is really hard for me anymore, but I think the hardest fights before the final boss are the Wing Fortress boss, Mystic Caves boss, and Chemical Plant boss. The music in Sonic 2 might be my favorite soundtrack of any Sonic game. It's at least one of my favorite soundtracks. Some of my favorites include Chemical Plant, Mystic Cave, Metropolis, and the Robotnik boss theme. And yes, I did get all the Chaos Emeralds this time, unlike the Game Gear version. The special stages are actually my least favorite out of the Genesis special stages, but I still managed to get all 7 of them. Yes, they added a 7th emerald for some reason, and you actually get something else other than a good ending for collecting all of them. By getting all 7, Sonic can transform into Super Sonic after getting 50 rings. You are invincible, have a super high jump, and are much faster. Unfortunately, nothing happens to Tails if he gets all 7. So I think you're able to tell by now that I love Sonic 2. There's not a single zone I don't like, and not a single piece of music I don't like. The whole game is very fast-paced, and it's a blast from start to finish. Not only is this my favorite Sonic game so far, but it's one of my favorite video games of all time. Sonic the Hedgehog 2 absolutely gets a 10 out of 10. Yeah, I'm not exaggerating when I say this. I love this game. I've played it over and over again. I've beaten it over and over again. I have to say that so far, out of the Sonic games that I've played, I haven't played all of them yet, but I plan to for these reviews. But Sonic the Hedgehog 2 for Genesis is my favorite Sonic game so far. It's amazing. So next week will be the next mainline Sonic game, which is Sonic CD for the Sega CD. So yeah, look forward to that. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I will see you guys in the next video. Have a good night.